Now we're recording. Now everything's good to go.
All right. So if you could introduce yourselves, just say your name and your institution. And if you have a burning question or even just a regular, not particularly burning question that you would like us to try to address during this webinar, just as you introduce yourself, share that question or questions and we'll write it down. If we don't get to every question on this webinar, we will find a way to follow up with everyone afterwards. So the first person I see on my list is Andrea Hart. Andrea, would you mind introducing yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Andrea Hart. I'm the Director of Exhibits at the Museum of Discovery and Science in Fort Lauderdale. And we've been doing COVES for almost a year now and are excited to have our first year of data. And I'm really interested in how others are summarizing and sharing out the data to stakeholders, especially when looking at trends over time and things like that.
Anne, how about you?
Hi, I am Anne Jorgen, and I am with the Natural History Museum in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Rita?
Hi, I'm Rita Diedrich, and I'm with COSI in Columbus, and my colleague, Jessica Takis, is also on the line, and we are both interested, although I will let Jessie ask other questions, interested in how different organizations share the results of COVES and on what schedule and to whom, because it's kind of complicated in a big museum and we're trying to figure out a good way to navigate that without just data dumping on everyone.
Sloan.
Hi, I'm Sloan Mann with Imagination Station. I'm the education director here. We're about a year into the COVES process. Really interested in data collection and also sharing out. I think I'd echo a lot of the questions that have already been voiced. And I will need to excuse myself at 1:30, so I'll do that quietly and then I'll watch the rest of the webinar afterwards.
Orlando.
Hello, good afternoon. Hello, everybody.
You want to introduce yourself and say what institution you're from?
Certainly. Orlando Graves Bolaños. I'm Art Education Manager here at the Museum, which is a children's museum in San Antonio, Texas.
Ooh, it keeps bouncing around different names in here. Samantha?
Hi. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yep.
Oh, thank you. So I'm a little late.
What institution are you from?
Oh, I'm from Discovery Place. I'm the Learning Experiences Administrative Coordinator.
Excellent. Allison?
Hi, I'm Allison Schwanebeck. I'm with the Science Center of Iowa. I'm the Director of Exhibits.
Okay, looks like Sarah Cohn.
Hi all, I'm Sarah Cohn. I'm at Aurora Consulting, was previously at Science Museum in Minnesota. Hey, SMM Square. And I am part of the evaluation capacity building team as part of COVES. So I'm super pumped to see more boxes on my screen than I can handle.
Beth.
Hi there, I'm Beth. I am at the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County, and I'm the Director of Evaluation and Museum Impact. And today is just our second day of administering the survey.
Brian.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Brian Haynes. I'm the Associate Director of Visitor Services at the Children's Discovery Museum in San Jose. Excited to just be here today. We're about 4 months in, so we're just really interested in how we can, what data we're going to get and how we can use it to better our customers.
Emily G. There, Emily G. Oop. No? Wow, there are so many squares.
Emily just chatted to us, so if you have the group chat open, Emily Green from Imagination Station is the experience coordinator.
Great.
She's off audio, so she'll be chatting in.
Oh, no problem. Gabby. You want to unmute yourself? Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Gabby. I am with Aztec.
And Xin Yi?
Hi, I'm Xingyi. I'm research associate with the Exploratory at San Francisco. I just joined our department 2 months ago, so I'm pretty new to a COVES project, and I really hope I could learn a lot from today's webinar. Thank you.
Awesome. Jessica at Science World.
Hi everyone, I'm Jessica McQuiggan. I'm the Research and Evaluation Manager at Science World in British Columbia. We've been doing COVES for about 1.5 years, and I would really love to hear how everyone else manages to recruit and retain people to collect COVES data. Collection has always been tricky for us, but I think we've nailed the sharing, so we might have some tips to share.
Jessie from COSI.
Hi, this is Jessie from COSI. I work with Rita, and she kind of already went through what sorts of questions we're interested in.
Okay, Kelly?
Hi, my name is Kelly, and I am the volunteer manager at Discovery World in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Lisa?
Hi, I'm Lisa. I'm Alexis. We're at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia.
Awesome. Glad you're here too, Alexis. Leanne?
I'm Leanne Masidi. I'm the Assistant Manager of Research and Evaluation at the Museum of Science, so also with Alex and Brian.
Okay, Megan Goki.
Hello, I'm Megan Goki, Science Museum of Minnesota.
And I'm Ever Velasquez, Science Museum of Minnesota.
And Megan Sheedle, other Megan.
Hi guys, this is Megan Cheadle. I'm a school museum programs manager at the Discovery in Reno, Nevada.
And I have 2 mics. I think one is probably Mike Discovery Center. Is there another mic?
On my phone, and Jim's on my office phone, so Jim is Mike as well.
Great,
Yeah,
so Mike and Jim.
Hi, Discovery Center Museum, Rockford, Illinois.
Awesome.
Mike Rothman, Associate Director, Discovery Center and Leadership Advisory Council.
Okay, Lawrence Hall of Science folks.
Hi, I'm Artis Hartree. I'm Associate Director of the Lawrence Hall of Science at UC Berkeley, and we'll hopefully be joined later with Dee Perry, who's our floor manager, but she's out managing the floor right now and all the students on it. But thank you for recording it. We have a couple of people that are really excited to see it afterwards. And we're fairly new to COVES. We just got our first data yesterday, so super excited about that. Tons of burning questions, but my guess is many of them will be answered during this call. So,
I have visitor studies on here. There's someone from visitor studies who's joined us.
Hi, Alex. I don't know if it's me, Carla from UMS.
Oh, it's Carla. Hi, Carla.
I think that the email probably is the one that I use. I'm Carla from UMSI, and I don't know why I'm visitor studies, but I have like a couple of burning questions. For example, we are in UMSI getting towards our second year of COVES data collection, and then we are trying to learn who doesn't come to the museum, for example, or who are those audiences that are underrepresented or non-representative of STEM learning. And then we want to learn if other institutions are using COVES to learn some insights. I know we gather data from visitors who are already here, but what can COVES data can hint us, and how can we learn more to start asking the right questions to those people who do not come to the museum? And other question that I have is like the refusal demographics that COVES collect. I want to know if we're going to have that available for our individual institutions, and how other institutions are envisioning using that.
And then the last person I think I have is someone with a 607 number, 860-724-363 phone number.
That's me. This is Patty from the Connecticut Science Center, and I'm on a phone instead of on a computer. I'm from the Connecticut Science Center. We've been doing it for collecting surveys for 1 month. So I wouldn't mind 1 or 2 best practices that people have from those with a year of experience under their belt.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. It's really cool to see so many people here. We've got a couple questions just to sort of seed the discussion. Some of them are a little bit basic, but we think it's good for folks who are at really different points in this data collection process to hear about, and then we can kind of let the conversation flow. I've already added a question about sharing COVES data out to others in your institution to the schedule questions I have here. Wow. And then there were a couple folks that I kind of tapped to like talk about how you do these things. So I might call on 1 or 2 of you to talk about this, but I just want to start with sort of a basic question, but I know we have different models at different institutions. So who collects data for you? Who collects the COVES data? What roles are they, and how many people do you have? And I was wondering if Jessica, since you kind of mentioned that it's something you guys maybe struggle with a little bit, you could talk about who collects your data and what the issues you see around that are.
Sure. So we have probably about 15 or so people who are trained to collect data currently. That number goes up and down as people come and go. Probably a little more than half our staff. I will say that we don't have a research and evaluation department. I am the research and evaluation department, so it's nobody's job to do this. And so we've got staff from the visitor experience team, from the development team, from exhibits, community engagement, who are interested and think that COVES is important, who have self-identified as people who would like to do data collection. And then we've got a few volunteers as well. So we'll usually have around 5 or 6 volunteers at any given time who might come in for a few hours a week. But I find that it's really tricky to keep volunteers engaged. Data collection isn't the most exciting thing happening in science world, and so I think that I'm really struggling to help manage those expectations when people come on board and they think research and evaluation and they have all of these big ideas, and then it's just, you know, asking people to fill out a survey. It's not what they had in mind. So anyways, that's who collects data for us.
And what strategies have you found any strategies that you've found to be helpful for retaining those folks, or should we bounce it out to other people who've used different strategies?
I would say no, I have not found any strategies, so I would love to hear what others have to say.
Yeah, so is there anyone else, particularly folks who don't have a research and evaluation department at their institutions, unless you feel like there's something that's applicable that way, but who has found good strategies for recruiting, retaining, keeping data collectors interested? Love to hear from you.
Hey everyone, this is Megan again from the Discovery Museum in Reno, and we also have not had any success with having volunteer data collectors. Like in the 5 years that we've been involved in COVES, I don't think we've had a single volunteer collector. But what we have had is a lot of success with our young part-time staff, who we have talked about this as an additional opportunity for development on their resume, and we do some kind of like career coaching along with it about how you can talk about this on your resume, how this is an added training and professional skill that you can build on. And I think thinking of it in that way has really helped them see it not only for the benefit of the museum, but also for the benefit of themselves, and kept them engaged longer.
Can I ask, Megan, this might be somewhat, I don't know, personal or inappropriate, but where does that budget come from? Like, who pays for these people to do the data collection?
Yeah, so the budget for COVES along, the payment to COVES, as well as the time, the salary costs and stuff, it comes out of our visitor operation budget, so general operating budget.
So you guys actually pay your volunteers? Is that what I'm understanding?
And they're paid staff. They're hourly staff, and so they just
Okay.
get scheduled as they would. But this is seen as like an additional professional opportunity after they have kind of performed at a satisfactory level. We played around with like having them actually kind of like go through an application process where they would apply for this opportunity to do this, have this training and this experience. And that was in times where it's been a little bit more competitive, like we only have so much money, we can only have so many of these data collectors. So when there was more demand, we might have them write a paragraph and like explain why you think this would benefit you and why you're interested in doing this work. But since then, it hasn't been so much of an issue. So usually it's just a discussion with them and their manager.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other, that's a really good strategy, Megan. I think I know of a couple other institutions that have done something like that. Does anyone else have any other things they've done?
Hi, this is Andrea. Oh,
go ahead, Andrea.
Oh, thanks. This is Andrea from Museum of Discovery and Science in Fort Lauderdale. So we started COVES about a year ago, and our CEO, Joe Cox, came to us from the Ecotarium, and he had been doing COVES up there. And his philosophy is that the data that COVES is bringing to the institution, and also this interaction with our visitors, is relevant to everybody in the institution. So his philosophy is to have all staff at all levels involved in data collection. And I was charged with kind of figuring out that process, and it's been a learning curve, and we're still learning over the year, just about year that we've been doing it. But basically, I've kind of divided our institution up into 3 groups. Our kind of behind the scenes full-time staff, and then our programs education team, and then our frontline visitor service box office team. And I have our full-time staff on a rotating schedule that just kind of rotates alphabetically, and I do 3 shifts a week of that group. And then I do 3 shifts of programs and 3 shifts of visitor services. So programs and visitor services can elect their own staff based on who they have available during that time frame. And as long as they cover their 3 shifts per week, it's up to the manager to decide how to distribute that from their team. And then it's just become part of our onboarding process, go through the COVES training, that any new staff member, part-time, full-time, or whatever, goes through the training process, gets certified, and as soon as they submit their certification to me, they are eligible to be put into this roster. And so far, it's kind of working out that we have about 50 folks, or anywhere from 40 to 50 folks on our full-time roster, and it's coming up about every 2.5 to 3 months that you will get a COVES shift. And that's how we've been handling it so far. And it's gone pretty well for the most part. We have had a few challenging times where everybody needs to be reminded that, we're all in this together, and we need some extra help here and there. But for the most part, it's been working out pretty well.
Kelly, I think you're about to say something, and then I'll go to our next question.
Sure. So Kelly from Discovery World in Milwaukee. We're also fairly new to COVES and are also having difficulties pretty much the same as everyone else from what I'm hearing in keeping and recruiting volunteers for the role. We are kind of taking on that same idea of utilizing staff members from a variety of departments who are interested in. our next step, which I'm interested to see how it will work, we do have high school interns that join us during the school year from select school programs that we work with. And we are considering making it a requirement of the internship to assist here and there with collecting surveys. I'm wondering if anyone else has had success in kind of utilizing high school students or program interns to assist in collecting surveys.
Oops. So to ensure we kind of move on a little bit with our questioning, but I'm sure that'll come up a little bit as we talk more, Kelly, this idea of using high school interns or whatever. I'm curious, folks, how, and I think Andrea even started talking about it a little in her response, how do you create a data collection schedule, and then how do you create accountability for the actual shifts, you know, if you're working all across departments? And I'd love if, maybe Jim, do you want to talk a little bit about how you create a data collection schedule and with your data collectors?
Yeah, we're actually in the midst of onboarding a few new staff members. So the way that we do it here at Discovery Center in Rockford is we have a number of office staff that are certified and able to collect data. And then we have pretty much, I would say, an equal, maybe a couple of extra staff members that are either certified or in the process of getting certified. The challenge that we face here is, you know, we're not a large museum. We have a couple of vacancies to fill in the administration, so everybody's kind of really kind of getting busy with the administrative side of things. And then when the floor gets busy, often our floor staff is pulled by exhibit staff or another education staff or something like that. So the challenge is sort of keeping that schedule consistent and sort of because we never really know if a staff person is going to be staying on the floor or if they're going to be helping out in a different department. At the moment, most of the data collection is being done by myself, and some of the office staff is jumping in where they can. But I am really interested in hearing more from people about keeping a consistent schedule going, because that's definitely a challenge that we face here at the Discovery Center.
Maybe Megan Goki, do you want to talk a little bit about how you do the mechanics of scheduling them?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of context, at the Science Museum in Minnesota, it sounds like we have a really different collector system than other people. We have a cohort of part-time and full-time paid staff that this is part of their job duties to do data collection. So we don't necessarily have as much of the accountability issues as others might experience, or even the loss of data collectors, because this is just part of our data collectors' jobs, and that's about 5 to 7 people depending on staffing. But the way we create a schedule, we've been part of COVES for 3 years now. So I know that on average, any given shift will get about 6 surveys collected. So based off of the quotas that we're given, I kind of look at the matrix of across days and the weekend versus weekday days. How many shifts in total do I need based off of that 6 survey average? Basically say I'm going to end up with, let's say, 2 a.m. shifts on Wednesday, 1 p.m. shift, and then I use a random number generator to actually assign which days are going to go when. It was really important to us not to have any sort of bias of like, oh, there's a special event on this day, so we want to make sure we're collecting. That's not the point of COVES. If that's what we want, we'll do a separate survey on that day. So trying to keep our bias out as much as possible. Another reason we're able to do that is because we do have staffing on all days of the week, so we're able to really make sure that it's distributed. One thing that we do struggle with is keeping up that motivation of staff, even though they're paid. You will, it's in my theory at least, that you will get a better response rate if people are excited about walking up to people and asking them to take a survey. So we've tried to do a lot more sharing of our data, both within our data collectors and across the museum, and also sharing back with the data collectors what decisions are being made based off of their work. Unlike some projects where there's a nice final report at the end, COVES can feel a little, I don't know why I'm doing it unless you really actively share it back. So even though we have that dedicated group, we also have some motivation concerns as well.
Do other folks have good strategies they've used to kind of keep up motivation and accountability?
I would just echo what Megan was saying about people sort of being excited to do data collection and how important that is. And one of the things that I try to tell all of our data collectors too is, you know, if you're out there and you also have some sort of negative experience or things, it's okay to step back and take a break and go back to the office for a few moments and then come back out. Because I think like visitors can definitely sort of read that, and the more unhappy you are on the floor, the less you're, you know, getting less people probably saying yes to. So encouraging people to kind of check in with themselves and make sure that, you know, you're still doing collection during the time, but it's okay if you need to kind of take a moment and regroup before going back out and talking to others.
Ryan, did you want Alexis and I to comment on this?
Always.
We don't have a ton to add in regards to solutions, but we thought maybe we could share a little just about like our process and challenges with this. We've been doing COVES for a year and a half, and we work with guest services staff, so they're part-time staff that they're paid hourly and they're scheduled not by us, which is part of the challenge. But they're generally like very, you know, guest enthusiastic, friendly staff that are excited to have a new skill. So they end up being great data collectors. And we do pay them. So we pay them a higher rate than they get for their regular duties, which has made this kind of like a special thing that people work for. And so it allows us to only attract the very best staff from guest services to help us with data collection. But the challenges are that Lisa and I don't schedule their hours. And so they end up getting shifts that are not necessarily the ones that I would want them to be working. We get less people working on weekends than we typically need because of call outs. So if we need someone to be directing guests to like bathrooms or taking tickets or whatever, COVES staff always get pulled if there's a call out. So we end up losing people when it tends to be busiest in the museum on a weekend when it's a beautiful day and people don't want to come to work. That's been one of our biggest challenges, and we've tried working with other departments who have part-time hourly staff to try and recruit them into the project, which is an ongoing thing right now. We've also been trying to figure out how to bring in high school students that are here for our other programs to kind of supplement that. So it's all in the works, but we don't necessarily have like a solution.
Leanne, are you able to talk at all about our part-time summer staff data collectors? Maybe the training process and just if there are expectations around that or kind of how we utilize them?
Sure. So this is something that we started doing last summer, particularly for July and August, when our survey counts are really high. We do have a research and evaluation department and typically have 5 data collectors that throughout the year, all of our surveys are pretty much collected by those 5 people. So it's really helpful in July and August to have some additional help. Our training process with them, we have everybody does human subjects training. And then we do sort of a short meeting with them that kind of talks about the overview of the COVES project, how we use this data, going over the types of questions we ask in the survey, to kind of give them a little bit of more background about the project. And also I would add that these are people that are working as program staff on the floor. So they are, I would say many of them are used to kind of working with people and have some of that background. And then we do a shadow some of our regular data collectors to help practice their spiel and kind of get a sense of where we do data collection and troubleshoot data collection general. And then for, at least for this summer, their managers are actually scheduling some set blocks on 3 days that we decided on during the week. So we're trying to do it on days that our data collectors don't typically schedule time. So we know that we've been kind of lower on, we'll say Wednesdays, because everybody has a ton of meetings on Wednesdays, and those are the one we could definitely use some extra assistance for. And so they'll be rotating their own staff kind of out on the floor for those 2 months. And they'll, because of the Google Sheets, they can enter all of their data, so I can kind of track to see where we are going throughout these months and how close we are to getting our final.
Orlando, you've been sharing a little bit in the chat. Do you want to explain a little bit more what you've been sharing over there?
Yeah, we started in January of 2018 and went through our first year with mid-level staff members that were up here in Cloud City, and the idea was, well, we're working across departments. Maybe we have more autonomy to decide how we're going to schedule ourselves. Of an initial group of about 18, 20 staff members, we ended up being about 7. And that was heavily skewed toward exhibits and education. And so that group, as it evolved, we realized that we needed to schedule. We needed to schedule the our COVES collection shifts. And so we just finalized in May and June training process to prepare hourly workers to do that. And so we have both the education team and the operations team involved, and it's about 30 staff members that are doing that collection. And I think the biggest change has been just being able to schedule them so they can see that on their schedule. That's also freed up the conversations with other colleagues to really start to focus on, we have a year of collection, how do we start using that information? So it's shifted the conversation with a lot of colleagues from how do we collect to let's start talking about the data. And so we've had some good exhibit conversations about, okay, well, if we've switched out a whole gallery, what are some of the intended changes? How is that affecting age groups? So we're able to go in and start looking at answers to, are we seeing younger age groups going into a gallery that was originally geared for an older age, for example? So those sort of questions are starting to be fleshed out after a year, and that's, I think, the exciting part. Hopefully, we can give everybody a share internally of that information so that we can keep people enthusiastic.
That's a great transition, I think, to the question that a couple people brought up at the very beginning about kind of some related questions about how are others summarizing and sharing out the data, how do different people share the results of COVES and to whom. So I think what the exact thing that Rita asked that I liked was, how are different organizations sharing the results of COVES, on what schedule, and to whom? I hate to call out Jessica again, but you said, like, I think we have the sharing figured out, which was cool. So do you want to seed that discussion for us again?
Sure. I hope those words don't come back to bite me. Yeah, so we share in a lot of different ways, and I think I've mentioned a few of them on the COVES discussion board, so I'll mention a few more here, and then I'm happy to chat more if anyone wants to follow up later. So one of the newest ways that took a lot of work but is really exciting for us is Alex and Ryan helped tremendously to help me create departmental data dashboards. So on Qualtrics, you can create little separate pages. And so because the COVES data set is so big, and it is way too much for most people, I think, to be able to sort through, I worked with the different departments and created a dashboard specifically for them. So with a subset of the total dashboard data. So for example, for the visitor experience team, I just have a page for them that is that contains data that's relevant to visitor experience. And so that's been going really well. We had to do a bit of training just to make sure that everybody is on the same page when it comes to, interpreting that data, making sure, don't share it in an inappropriate way. This is sensitive and this is proprietary and all of that. So it's been a really great opportunity to develop some capacity building within the organization as well. And it's been, people are really excited to see it. The dashboard is so much fun to play with when you start clicking and filtering and all of those things. People get really into it. So that's been great. We've got I think there's about 17 staff who are trained and have access to the departmental dashboards. And then on top of that, I've been working closely with the senior leadership team so I meet with them at least once a quarter to really help them understand what COVES can tell us, what can't it tell us, what is it telling us, and just trying to, kind of bounce back and forth different ideas and what's interesting to us at the time. And then probably the last big thing that I do is I write a little report once a month in our internal newsletter, just pick some fun aspect of COVES data and write about it and encourage people to think about what it means and how to apply it. And I've gotten some really good feedback on that. So those are some of the things that we're doing here at Science World.
What are other folks doing?
We at the Science Museum of Minnesota are actually implementing something really similar to what it sounds like is happening at Science World. We've been working with Alex the last couple of months about making our own dashboard pages, and we actually pulled together kind of a group of advisors from across the museum, really trying to get perspectives from mission advancement to our human resources people, saying that this isn't just data that's, sorry if you hear construction noise, it's trying to say that this isn't just data that matters to people who are working directly on the museum floor, but everyone should know and have access to this data. So sometime in the next month, whenever we have our next all staff, we're gonna be rolling out access to the online dashboard to our entire museum, actually. And the way we've divided up the data is by working with that advisor group. We found some people cared a lot about the experience metrics, other people really cared about demographic metrics, some people just wanted to see stuff over time, and that's how we made the individual dashboard pages that we put together. So for us, we're kind of doing a bit of a leap of faith. We've spent a lot of time thinking about that wording of, you do not have permission to share this externally. You need to check numbers with us if you're about to make a big decision based off of things. But trying to say, this is a playground, this is a place where you can come and see the data for yourself and do a bit of your own exploration, and not say, research and evaluation are the only people who can analyze or interpret what's going on.
So when you say you're sharing your dashboard with the entire museum, are there like more controls, or is there like a public viewing space, or because there's, that's password access, right? Is there a different thing that you've been working on building, or is it full access and different pages to help you make sense of it?
Yeah, great question. Not public access. So you need to be a museum staff or volunteer member to have access to the login. Sorry, I think I missed half the question.
Yeah, just saying, are you sharing your login to all museum staff? And, are they able to see the same level as research and evaluation is able to see, or are you showing them something different?
Yeah, so we decided to do a second login. So we have our primary login where you can see all the data and you can add your own pages and edit your own widgets to make them look however you want. The secondary login does not have any editing privileges, so they can filter and export things, but they can't see the aggregate data. They can only look at SMM specific data, and they can only see the 4 dashboard pages that we put together. based off of the original ones that Alex and Ryan did. Yeah, those are the big things. And I should say, we also do quarterly official data polls for all of our data. So there's still going to be those official numbers that get shared as well as the yearly numbers, but trying to have more data transparency with the sharing of the online dashboard for people to answer their own questions, essentially.
This is all very, very interesting, and I love where this is heading because I think some of these comments really address the comment we heard earlier about keeping data collectors engaged in the data collection process by either sharing data with them or keeping them motivated to collect the data. I mean, Megan, it was your point that with a typical research project, you collect data and then you have a report and it's over, and so you have a tangible outcome at the end, whereas COVES, for better for worse, never ends. And by that I just mean it's ongoing. Very but I kind of want to bring us back to, so there's a great question in the chat box from Emily Green. Does any of your institutions use incentives to motivate the data collectors? I think one thing I heard from Alexis and the staff at Franklin was this idea of different wage structure, and I have no idea how that works. But I've actually been taking notes, and I have a couple of really questions that are important to me that I think all of you can speak to. Maybe one of them is, do you offer incentives to motivate data collectors? Another one gets back to this issue of accountability. So once you establish a data collection schedule, how do you keep data collectors honest? And then how do you adjust maybe halfway through the month or toward the end of the month once you monitor what the data collection schedule turns into rather than what you set it to be?
Well, a tool that I forgot to mention, this is Andrea from Museum of Discovery and Science, that has been super helpful is the extra widget that Alex added to our dashboard that shows real-time survey tracking. And I don't know if that's been implemented across the board, but it's been so helpful for me to just be able to check that definitely on a weekly basis, sometimes on a daily basis when things seem a little bit slow. And that kind of gives me a little hint as to what's happening after individual shifts or different times of the week. And then I can go back to forums like our leadership meeting or something like that and continue to reinforce that we all need to be diligent with our timeframes and let me know if there's scheduling conflicts and all that kind of stuff. So that tool has really helped.
Does anyone use any shared accountability structure? I think I chatted with someone who's not on the call about, somehow putting up in a public space some kind of tracking of either individuals or departments in terms of their ability to gather data, in the schedule that they have all created together. Is there any sort of public accountability or collective accountability that anyone uses?
At Discovery World here in Milwaukee, we do have a very large-scale visible whiteboard here in our offices with each volunteer and staff person's name who does collect surveys. At the top of the board, we kind of have our monthly goal and then our personal goal set for each individual survey collector next to their names. And they're in charge of kind of updating that running count of how many they collect each month. So it kind of gives a little more accountability each month.
We don't have a public version of the accountability, but within the spreadsheet that all the data collectors can see, there is a running total of sort of where everybody is. I think so they can check in each other and see about going out and doing data collection. They go out in pairs, but also to kind of keep track of kind of where people are in the month.
Rita, this is Jessie. Do you want to talk about what we do?
We may have lost Rita.
Jesse, do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
I guess I can talk about it. Rita, if you're there, you can chime in. She told me, she just texted me to introduce her. So basically we've divided like our research and evaluation team. We've all taken like a certain days of the week. And so like I'm on team Wednesday, and there are 3 of us that are in charge of Wednesdays, and we have like a goal for the month of how many we need to collect on Wednesdays, and we kind of we hold ourselves accountable to that goal. And then we switch off weekends so that we're not all doing weekends every month. Okay, Rita doesn't have audio at all. Yes. Oh, there you are, Rita. Do you want to finish? Because it was your idea on how to do this. So go ahead.
Wait, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, hey, hi. Sorry. Wow, technology is not my friend. Well, Jesse was doing a great job, and I think that what's been working for us is it became a friendly competition. So we have these 3 teams, and we can say, well, I got 20 today. How many did you get? But it's very friendly, and we're professional researchers and evaluators, and so it doesn't get into the just trying to meet a quota kind of thing, and that has helped. That has helped a lot. It's not perfect, but when you have a team of 3, and you also give each other a break. If I'm having a really tough day and it's my turn to go out and collect code, somebody else on my team can fill in for me, and I promise I'll take up that person's shift another time. So having those little teams has worked well for us. So for what it's worth, I'll throw that into the mix.
There was a comment in the chat box that some institutions also give their data collectors candy, which apparently makes a huge difference. Again, I'll keep going with the selfish questions. We've only got about 8 minutes left, so if you have more pressing questions, definitely chime in. But I feel like there's so many people here, we're trying to figure out whose turn it is to talk. But I provide the monthly report outs on your data collection summary, and 2 things were mentioned that I think are interesting. One, Megan reported the average amount of time, or the average number of surveys per shift, per hour or something, that she uses to help plan her shift. I'm wondering if anyone else uses that. And then there was the comment about monitoring how much data comes in on the weekend and looking at that. And that's something that's missing from Andrea down in Florida, the use of the dashboard to see the real-time data tracking. So I'm wondering what pieces of information you might use to help plan your data collection schedule that either COVES already gives you or that we could give you to make things more efficient. Because we're always striving to make this easier on you, and definitely could use feedback.
I will say, this is Andrea in Florida again, that weekends are our biggest challenge. So I would definitely love to hear thoughts and answers on it as well.
And Anne, you were muted.
Hang on.
Now you're unmuted.
Okay, great. I was just going to say, I think we use a very similar process, and I think basically we got this from you, Ryan. Just judging, how many surveys we are generally getting per shift, and then going from there. And it sounds like, just from what I've heard from the few of you who've said that we get roughly about the same, maybe like 6 to 8 surveys taken per shift, and so we go ahead and divide our target number by 3.5, and then we can kind of decide, okay, well, that gives us this certain amount of hours that we need, and I just go ahead and divide it out throughout the calendar. We usually end up with 13, maybe roughly 11 to 13 shifts per time, but we just kind of base it off of, okay, how long have we been doing this? Each volunteer is roughly getting maybe 6 to 8 surveys done per shift, and so we just kind of go off of that number, if that helps anybody.
At the Museum of Science, the Friday night data collection is the one that we try to rotate more so than our like weekdays and weekends, because we have people regularly schedule. And so we have people rotate in, and there's a primary data collector and a secondary data collector for each month, so that not everybody has to stay 6:30 to 8 on Fridays. So the primary person tries to get as much as they can that first night, and so then if there's any left over, the secondary person schedules for another Friday that month, and we for about 10% of our monthly total to be collected on Friday nights.
I had a question about certification. Mike has mentioned that we're looking into like an actual specific to COVES certification onboarding process. Is that, can we expect that anytime soon, or are we going to continue with the human study that we do currently?
We are actively working on that, pretty much. So if you have anyone coming on in the next week or two, like you'll use the old one, but we're kind of creating. There'll still be kind of like a quiz, that you'll have to take to get certified. So we're working on what that quiz looks like, and then what other aspects would go into that training. So we are actively working on it.
Thank you. Great.
Well, we're just about at the end. Are there any other questions we didn't get to? I see one from Megan Goki that's kind of a question, but also sharing onboarding resources with each other. If people do anything specific or interesting for onboarding new data collectors, I think it would be really interesting to maybe share those resources on the COP. I do know Carla mentioned earlier in the chat that they recorded the training I did at OMSI and share that recording with future data collectors. And I know Beth at Natural History Museum of LA did the same thing. And maybe, I don't know if Beth, if you've trained new data collectors yet, but I know you did record the training. And if there's any other resources, I'm sure it'd be awesome to see those shared on the COP. Did I miss any other questions? I'm sure there's much more we could talk about in terms of scheduling and retaining and recruiting for a long time, but
there was a question about the refusal data, and as we're talking about, sort of tracking our metrics, do we have a plan? Is there a plan for like sharing that back out, or is that happening? Or
has not happened yet. Plan is to share it, and for a while that didn't happen because we didn't really have the refusal demo. I mean, we switched the way we monitor non-response data, but now we should have a sufficient amount where we can start sharing that back, both as a summary at time points throughout the year, but then the raw data format. So if you're super motivated, you can keep track of that in an ongoing manner. Because I do think that is another resource that will help with data collection planning. I would be fascinated if people would be, and if Alex is willing, but if OMSI and Natural History Museum of LA are willing to share those videos, because this was a question that Megan Goki also posted about. We've been doing COVES data collection. I've been involved in COVES for 3 years, but I wasn't even at the initial training. How do we keep consistent from that initial training over time as more people cycle on and off? So I think that's a great resource that we might be able to post. And I wonder if through the COP, you all can just share whatever you've got as far as onboarding resources. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be fancy, but anything that can spark an idea for a new institution might be really useful. And since we're almost out of time, I just want to go ahead and say that a lot of those questions about sharing data back to stakeholders, reporting out, how do you schedule all of the sharing of data is intended to be another conversation like this, just not the focus of today's conversation about data collection. So it's not that we're ignoring those questions. I just think we can focus a whole other hour on that and share some other resources and ideas around it. Okay, well, it's exactly 2 o'clock Eastern. So I think we're going to go ahead and just say thank you to everyone for participating and showing up for an hour. This is not meant to be a one and done conversation. We recognize that data collection continues to be something that we literally work on every single month while we participate in COVES. So if you have additional questions, if you want to engage in the community of practice, if you want to share some of those resources or push Alex and I to do more for you, please do let us know. I'm going to stop this recording and post it for others to view, but thank you all for your time, and we are going to plan a different 1 hour webinar type thing for next month, and we'll keep it all posted.
And I will add that if anyone heard someone else on the call talking about something interesting and wants to be connected directly, just contact me or Ryan, or post on the COP. But if you want like a direct email at all, we can help facilitate that connection. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
It was really nice to talk to you and see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good afternoon.